Well, welcome to another episode of the Grazing Sheep Podcast. I'm your host, Big Tom Perkins, along with Dr. Cameron Meyerly. And Cam, you just got back from what, the National Farm Machinery Show?
Yep. Yeah, it was down in Louisville, Kentucky. I think it's always down in Louisville, Kentucky, and something that never been to and thought it'd be fun. It's on the bucket list of things to check off. And so grabbed my cousin over in Indiana. We went down and checked out what all the buzz was about. So a lot of people. We were down there the first day that they opened, which was Wednesday, and I thought that maybe we'd beat some of the crowd, and there were plenty of people there on the first day of that show. But
Yeah.
it is I don't know how many acres under roof. But for those that are familiar with the North American International Livestock Expo, the Kentucky Expo Center, it is in that same building. And instead of housing livestock, it houses equipment in every square foot of the building they can find. So it was pretty cool. A lot of new and creative things, a lot of old and expensive things, and a lot of things that you'd put on the wish list that reality says probably not gonna happen. If it does, it won't be anytime soon.
Yeah, a friend of mine and I used to go out to Ag Progress Days. And somebody asked us one time why we went out because we couldn't afford anything there. And we said, well, we'll look at this stuff that's brand new today and we calculate in 30 to 35 years, we'll be able to buy that exact machine because it'll be that old and it'll be on our price range by then. But
Right.
as it has turned out, they're still too expensive. I still can't afford, even the 35-year-old tractor now. Too much money. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, and some of the stuff, I had made a comment. They had a New Holland square baler, a big square baler, and they're pulling the thing with and it's not an active demo, but just for show purposes, have a New Holland 435, and and I think that's correct. Doesn't matter. It was a 400 plus horse tractor on the
Yeah.
front of this thing. And you just look at it and you go, what in the like, there's no way it takes that that size of equipment to go and bale a large square bale. Like it
Hmm.
just I know they take more than what we're doing with our other smaller implements, but I'm hoping it's for show purposes. And then the combines, my goodness. The majority of these, Tom, where you're located at, they'd be too big
Yeah.
for practical use
Yeah.
because you'd make a pass in your cash rent field. You'd go down once and back once, and then have to figure out how to get out of the field to make it down the road to
Yeah.
the next rented piece of ground.
Yeah. It's
But
it's
I mean, they're
it's amazing.
massive, massive.
I will tell you this. I grew up in an International Harvester farm machine dealership. And when we International wanted you to have one piece of every equipment that they had, that's what they wanted on your lot. And so
Mm.
we ended up with a self-propelled combine, sitting on our lot. And with an enclosed cab and all that. And everybody that walked in there or pulled in the place to look at it said, who in their right mind could ever afford something like that? Now, there isn't a farm anywhere that doesn't have, that's raising grain that doesn't have their own self-propelled combine. We were all used to pull-type combines, and we figured that there would never be this whole self-propelled combine thing was never going to catch on because nobody could ever afford them. And now everybody
Right.
has them. And I mean, geez, some of the inside of these combines, they're nicer than my living room. It's
Oh
unbelievable.
yeah. Maybe more space too on
Yeah,
some of them.
yeah,
It's,
it's
I'm joking, of course, but they had a couple. First of all, some of this is you look around, you're like, where is the door that they pulled this thing in on?
yeah,
Because I don't see an opening big enough to get it into the building. But yeah, they had some well, another piece of equipment. It would be a they at least the term I called was a mother bin. So, or a mother wagon. And so you
Hmm.
park it on the edge of the field and unload your grain into it. And it holds like 5, 10 semi loads worth of grain in it.
Yeah.
And it's got like 12 wheels. They all are on their independent axle and turn at the same time. And it's again fields that are far larger than anything that we probably even get to see on a regular basis.
Oh yeah.
Uh, someone says, "Oh, I've got to dump it here because I can't get it back to the home farm and make it back to the combine by the time they need to empty
Yeah.
out." And again, it is eye-opening. I'm sure there are people there that are looking at items like that going, "Oh, that would really improve the efficiency of our operation." The other fun thing, what I enjoy, the number of genetics company on the seed side of things and the number of uh, like soil health formulas, and everybody's got this magic liquid to put
Yep.
with your seed on
Yep.
your plant that is guaranteed to make an improvement. And it's like how many different items can I buy and put on my monoculture crop to make an improvement? At some point, do we tap it out? Um, I don't know, but it that to me was also fascinating.
Yeah, the bug in the jug, as I like to call it, is really gotten popular and really caught on. Um, there's a gal, I can't think of her name off the top of my head. She was asked, she's big into soil and soil biology and all that, and she was asked about these, bug in the jug concepts. And she thought it was a good idea, but the problem was these all have a shelf life. And
Yep,
all the ones that she had tested, all the bugs were dead.
yep,
The biology that was in there was long gone. And so it's I think it could work, but I don't see how I would be concerned about the shelf life. I was on a webinar where they were talking about drone seeding, and there was a company who had pelletized alfalfa seed. And it wasn't really the seed itself that was pelletized, but they put it in worm castings and a couple other biological things that were in that. And then the drone would fly this on, and those seeds would land, and they'd be in their own little enclosed capsule, basically. And they would give them this start
mm,
as they sprouted. And as soon as they sprouted, they were sprouting into this little capsule thing, and they had all these extra nutrients and so on. They were just ranting and raving about how good this was, and it was just some local guy that was doing it up in Canada, and of course, as soon as this guy brought this up, everybody and their brothers like, well, could you do that with oats? Could you do that with wheat? Could you do that with corn? And
mm.
it just got crazy, but again, so that was a bug in the capsule instead of a bug in the jug. But the there's just a lot more talk about this. And that was one of the
Yeah,
concerns when regenerative ag kind of started to hit mainstream and kind of took off. I kept thinking the issue is you can't sell sunlight and you can't sell rain. So who's gonna capitalize on this? Well, the bug in the jug folks came along and trying to buy that biology, that mycorrhizal fungi. They just swear up and down in there and all that. And I don't know. You can go get pond water and do just as well, I think. But
hey, might not be a bad idea there, Tom, because
yeah,
again, you could have had a booth and called it Tom's Pond Water, guaranteed to add 10 bushels
yeah,
to every acre, and
yeah,
you would have had a line there waiting to talk to you. And
yeah.
I'm not putting those individuals down. It was just something to me that, how do you, if I put it out, I have to quantify what I'm doing or what I'm getting at the end of the season or during the season. That also means that I have to quantify what I had last season, because I think a lot of this is is placebo on, oh
Hmm.
wow, look at that corn this year. It is way greener. It's taller than it was the year before. Well, am I saying that because I've added certain number of dollars per acre with this bug and a jug product, or is it because of different weather events? Maybe we got more rainfall. Maybe the environment is more conducive to growing that crop. And I think we're guilty of that not only in our pastures, but maybe even with our sheep too. I know you had bought in a ram last year, and um, yeah, I'm hoping that that ram for you creates lambs that are better than what you've had in the past.
Hmm.
But I get stuck in some situations sometimes where like, man, these lambs are more vigorous than they were last year because that ram that we chose to use was he was the ticket. And I think we're all very susceptible to doing something like that. But a lot of people there looking for an answer to make an improvement. How do we create more profitability? How do we generate more product? Um, and every piece of tillage equipment known to man. Probably the best part for me was you see a lot of what I would call foreign manufacturers. So the Salfords and the Pottingers and the um, whoever else that you've seen online and actually get to see them kind of in person. And it's
Hmm.
like, oh, it's interesting to me are what I would call our domestic equipment manufacturers all they all make a tillage they all have a line of tillage equipment and very similar. Maybe they add this or add that, but their type and kind is very similar. And then I go look at this product made in Europe, and it's got like 8 different components on it
Yeah.
that are completely different. They
Hmm.
look completely different than what we'd use from a domestic manufacturer. And you sit there and you say, you know, did the domestic manufacturers have it figured out so everybody's copied each other and they just that works, or is this something new and groundbreaking, no pun intended, that is going to work exceptionally well? But at some point, is turning over dirt just turning over dirt? Is is what I sit there and ask myself sometimes. But
Yeah, it's
I don't
pretty
know.
amazing. It's pretty amazing. I wonder too. I look at some of this stuff. Seb Cousins has just bought a soil finisher, it's called.
Okay.
And I would love to have them come down here and plow up my strip mine ground and run that soil finisher over it. One, I'm wondering, how mashed up that soil finisher will be by the time they've done it. Or
Oh,
would
great.
it actually be, oh, this is what I've needed all my life?
Yep.
I don't know. Uh, I know they're making the big deal out of they're seeing the big yield increase in uh, in a lot of their no-till fields that they've decided to use this. And my argument is, yeah, you're burning up all the carbon you've been storing.
Right.
That's why you're seeing the yield increase. Now, I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know what it is. It's hard to
And
tell.
and you're exactly right on those first couple of years where we're taking that and getting those results.
Hmm.
Long term, I would not expect to see that boom. Um, but in the short term, those initial couple of years makes a it will make a difference. But
Yeah, I'm sure too.
again,
It's got to have something to do with seed to soil contact, but I forget what they told me they paid for this thing. But my parents didn't pay that much for this farm when they bought it. You
right.
know,
Yeah, oh, for sure. For sure. Big, big implements, big pieces of equipment to pull them. And what's baffling to me, so they had saw a couple of quad tracks, some case quad tracks down there. So if you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, you got 4 big tracked tires or
yeah.
tracks on a
Instead of tires, they have tracks.
yes, yeah, and
Yep.
it's articulated there in the middle. Just a big piece of equipment. Again, for the majority of ground that's around Tom or those cash running fields, probably too big to
Oh
get
yeah.
in and out and then to travel with the populations that we have, on the road. But you've got that piece of equipment, and then what they'd have or what they'd consider a ripper. So something that's got some really big shanks that are digging deep into the ground. Well,
Hmm.
that ripper is only 12 feet wide. Like would just cover the wheelbase
Yeah.
of the piece of equipment that they have to pull. It might be that 12 feet, and I'm probably exaggerating. It's probably not that narrow, but it's like 40 feet long. And the
Mm.
thought process is, can we get more more soil conditioning items in a row and make fewer passes through the field. So instead of
Yeah.
me going out with my mobile plow and then my disc and then my harrow after that, can I take one piece of equipment that just rips and conditions all in one pass? I just need a giant tractor to pull, this item through the field. And again, it trying to make ties into the livestock industry side of things. You're walking around because newsflash, there was my daughter had asked me if I saw any horses when I was down there. And I said, no,
Hmm.
no horses. And then, well, were there any sheep? Like, no, there was one dairy cow for the Kentucky dairy education booth.
Okay.
And that was the only livestock on the place.
Yeah.
And certainly had some beef handling piece of equipment. And I think I saw one livestock trailer, you know,
Yeah.
very geared to an industry that we don't operate in.
Yeah.
Um, but it was still fun to visit and again make some of those ties, some of those analogies over to the sheep industry specifically and what we're doing on our home operation.
Yeah. It is kind of funny. You were talking about, how big these machines are, and you go out into into your field. There's a field down along our road here that my dad used to farm years ago. He'd spread manure on all winter and plant corn in it. I was down there the other day, and I parked there and then walked across down to the creek to watch the ice go out. And suddenly it occurred to me, how did he ever turn around in this field? Because it's pie shaped and it literally comes to a point, and you would have to turn out of the field onto the road and then go back along that when you were chopping corn, for corn silage. But it's like I couldn't even in the widest part, I couldn't turn my big tractor around that. But he was farming with a Farmall H, a little one row corn chopper and a little small forage wagon, and even
Yep.
that, even that I think would be tight. But it's funny because I haven't planted anything in that field for years because it's just too small. It's too hard to get around in, and because my machinery is too big. And now you go to something like this and you see this machinery and you're like, oh, they would never work in any of my fields because my fields are always too small for this. So you can see it kind of
Yep.
going generationally, where my dad, he was perfectly happy with putting corn in that little, I think it was like an acre and 2/10. That's all the bigger the whole thing is, and it's kind of long and narrow. But like I said, it's a pie shape, and it's like, man, So now it's just growing up in brush and trees, and it was for me. It wasn't even big enough to bother going down brush hogging.
Right.
Keep it cleaned off. I don't know, but yeah, it is funny how all this has changed. And I got to admit, a couple of weeks ago, I was out there in northern Indiana, and those were some of the biggest fields I've seen in a long time.
Oh yeah.
Those fields were pretty big, and I was surprised to see all the irrigation equipment there. And I was surprised too that in some of these smaller fields they had irrigation stuff sitting there.
Yeah, it was again having some family that's from northeastern Indiana. It's not that far away from
Mm,
central Ohio, but it comes down to that soil type and texture
yeah.
and where they need water or the ability to raise X number of bushel increase
Hmm.
with that irrigation is it's intriguing. If you can make it penciled, then by all means go for it. But there's quite a few up in that area and it's an area that I guess I would not expect to see it until you get up and talk to the people and understand why they're doing what they're doing. But yeah, it's
Yeah,
flat and
yeah.
open,
As
and
I drove out across there, I was like, oh, I can see why they have the big machinery here because you could easily turn it around. You could do figure eights in these fields and never even come close to hitting the boundary. And it
right,
is it is flat out there. It dawned on me you could sit on your porch and watch your dog run away all day because
you could,
it is
you
that
could,
flat. Every
yep,
half hour or so you can look out there and say, yeah, he's still going.
he's
So
still going, yep.
it was
Oh,
pretty
that's
nuts.
funny.
But the So just to kind of change the subject here, get back to sheep. How's your lambing going?
Yeah, so lambing has started. We've got some Texel ewes that are dropping lambs and shouldn't say dropping lambs, being assisted in their lambing ventures. And so getting everybody, crutched on the wool side of things, and finally got the hair ewes moved inside and get the barn cleaned out, which that had been a long time coming. Certainly saw some skid steers down there in Louisville that you'd say, it'd probably take me like 2 scoops to get the whole barn cleaned out because it's absolutely massive, but or at least been a little more comfortable with the door on the front and a heater because I about froze a couple of those days as it was raining and blowing into the cab of that thing.
Yeah.
It got a little chilly, but yeah, we got everybody cleaned out, everybody bedded down, and so now it's the waiting game. We did not CIDR anybody for this in season lambing and just uh thought we'd go natural approach this time around. Already regretting it. And a lot of it had to do with just timing on our summer schedule to be able to get CIDRs into use. And I can already say, looking at udders that are in that pen, um, we're probably going to CIDR everything for in season lambing next year because I'd love right now to just have them go in a week, be done in a week, and then lamb out the carryover, the cleanup, use 2 weeks later. So it might be something we just pursue here on out from a labor saving standpoint that we've talked about on here previously. But yeah, it is. We're getting ready to get going, and certainly when it takes off, it's gonna take off and move pretty quickly. At least is my hope, and that's kind of what you're experiencing over there.
Well, yeah, I hope mine goes this way. It hasn't so far. It was so hot, so dry. Um, we ended up leaving the Rams in with the ewes for 2 cycles, which I typically don't do. I do 1 cycle. And probably was a good thing because I probably would half these ewes probably would have been open because we're well past our 17-day mark and still have ewes that haven't lambed yet. And it seems like we'll hit one day where we got 6 or 7, 8 ewes all lamb and then nothing for a day or two. And then they
Hmm.
kind of come again. And it is really, really drawn out this time for whatever reason. And I still think there's a handful in there that aren't bred at all. They sure don't look like it. But
Yeah. And would
it's
those
just
be first time lammers or
yeah, yes.
okay?
I haven't had a single 2024 or ewe lamb yet. So I don't know. There's some in there. They certainly look tall enough, big enough frame and
Yeah.
all that. They should have cycled. I don't know what's going on. Now saying
Yeah,
that,
we ended up
probably walk out the barn this evening and there'll be a bunch of them there in a pile.
right, right. I think I had mentioned to you on the phone the one day we actually started our lambing season with a 2024 ewe lamb that lambed at what would be about 10 months of age. Uh,
Yeah,
and just was shocked. We were looking at him in the field, and she was in good condition and a decent size, but she had an udder, and I thought, oh, that's a little bigger than where you should be. Where you should be 2 months ahead of lambing in your respective breeding group, and moved her in the barn. She had a set of twins, raising them both, and I would not promote that because they're not all gonna be able to
no,
do that. But what I think's encouraging, even in an accidental situation that we experience, this ewe is out of one of our better indexing ewes, one of our more maternal lines of sheep, and you can really tell, obviously, from a fertility standpoint, in that first onset of cycling is right in line with all of the data and textbook that you might find. Um, but yeah, it's one of those when you breed for sheep that are going to do this, and you have a numeric value tied to that. Just the power of those reproductive traits can really shine through. But again, would not advocate for doing that. We just happen to have a positive outcome from a negative accident. So that was
Yeah, we
a whoops
yeah, the only
situation.
the only negative we have had so far is had two ewes lamb yesterday, and well, you remember last year I had such a problem with mismothering.
Yeah.
So I go in, there's a set of twins there, all dried off. They're up, they're walking around. They've already nursed, their bellies are full, and I have two ewes there, claiming them. And I'm like, great, two singles. What is going on? This just kills my lambing rate, my lambing percentage. And so I grabbed the one of the lambs and said, okay, which one's going to be the mom who's going to follow me out? Well, both ewes were wanting to follow me out.
Of
So
course.
I turned the one ewe around and I'm looking and I'm like, I don't think you've lambed yet. And then I thought, you know what? I need to just go look and see what her tag number is and see who she was bred to because these two lambs were clearly Suffolk Cross lambs.
Oh, okay.
And so I looked at the other ewe who I did not think had lambed yet and looked real quick on the breeding sheet and yep, she was bred to my 466 ram. And I'm like, yep, these are
Hmm.
not yours. So that made me happy because that helped my lambing percentage because that meant twins out of this one ewe. So I took her, put her in a jug, and then in another pen later that afternoon, another set of twins. They were clearly Suffolk Cross lambs, and so I got her jugged up, and then we went to tag those lambs, and I was looking on the breeding sheet, and I was like, that ewe was not supposed to have been bred to a Suffolk ram. That ewe
Oh no.
He was supposed to be bred to a 466, but they are clearly Suffolk Cross lambs. They are
Oh no.
not, they can't be out of 466. So,
Yep.
a little disappointed in that. Somehow or another, she ended up in the wrong pen at breeding time.
Yep.
She may have started out in the right pen and may have slipped through. We've had this happen before, but it was, one time we had, I think, eight ewes in one pen and 10 in another, and put them all in there. Everything was fine. Came back in the next morning. We had all 18 in one pen, and they all found a hole where they could slip through, and every one of them decided to for some reason. They decided they wanted to be together. But
And of course they were, ready to be bred that same day as well.
yeah, we
But
had we hadn't turned the rams in yet. And I was like, whew.
oh, good.
So we
Good.
were able to separate them back out. We always use a different color crayons for whatever pen they're supposed to
Yeah.
be in, so that we can keep an eye on them. If everybody's supposed to be green in this one pen and there's a red one in there, we got a problem. So,
Right.
but for whatever
Right.
reason, I didn't catch this one. It still makes no sense to me. I don't understand how this happened. We probably marked her wrong and put her in the wrong pen right from the beginning. But
Yeah.
I don't know how we messed that up, but we did. And then this morning I went out and that ewe that was wanting to claim one of those Suffolk cross lambs yesterday, she had lambed.
Good.
So,
Good.
but it came on real hot and heavy. They came on early. They lambed about almost a week before they were supposed to. And then we just
Oh,
went through this.
really?
Yeah, then we went through this lull. And, but all lambs are weighing in at 9.5, 10.5 pounds. And I figure everything from here on out that does lamb, they're going to be heavier just because they've gotten corn longer. But yeah,
Yeah, it'd be
really,
interesting to
it's
see
really
where
stretched
your
out this
weights line
year.
up.
We've seen this in the past. The uh, the last ones to lamb typically have the heaviest lambs.
Yep.
And my guess is just because they've been on corn longer.
Yep. Now the heaviest in creating dystocia issues or just heavier
Not
lambs?
yet, just heavier lambs.
Good.
I haven't had to pull anything yet this year. No, yeah, I haven't had to pull anything yet this year, and I've only witnessed one being born. I went out in the evening
Okay.
just to check before I went to bed. You had a bag. She was pawing, building a bed, like they do. And I thought, well, I'll just sit here and wait on you. And I waited about 15 minutes. I was playing a game on my phone, and I thought, I'll give you another 15 minutes and we'll see what you're doing. And I figured if she hadn't progressed any, then I'd go in and see what was going on with her. And so as I was playing on my phone, I happened to glance up and I said, oh, there's something going on there. And of course, other ewes walk in where I can't see. And so I get up and I walked around and I'm like, oh, geez, the lamb's almost out except for its back feet. So I gathered that
Nice.
lamb up and I put her in a jug and then came out in the morning and she'd had another one. So I had a nice set of twins in.
Good.
But yeah, I
Good.
haven't had a bit of problems with anybody lambing, haven't had to pull anybody, haven't had to assist anybody. And so far, every lamb we've been able to pick up, walk towards the lambing jug, and the ewe just follows along.
Oh, that is a good year when that's the case. I
What
mean,
I have noticed
we've
is
gotten to the
that
point now where
every year, if this is her second lamb, she'll follow that lamb just about anywhere. And but
okay,
if it's her first lamb, we got to get the rope out and play rodeo. She wants to
yep,
follow that lamb. She's too afraid of you or me.
yep,
There's not quite enough mothering instinct there uh, I'll follow this lamb, to hell and back.
yeah,
All
right.
the first timers, they're like, I really want to follow that lamb. That's my lamb. But yeah, they're too afraid of me. And for
So
whatever,
have you done
go
the
ahead.
math to know where you're at lambing percentage wise yet?
No, my guesses were probably like at 180 because of a couple
Okay,
singles.
nice,
And we have one set of trips.
nice.
And and then it had another ewe that had a single. And I was like, well, there goes my 200%. So
Yeah,
I'm not expecting any more
right.
trips. Yeah, I'm not expecting any more trips, so we'll see where
Yep,
we're at. But I would say too, with as god awful hot as it was in the fall and as dry as it was, I probably was pretty lucky to have what I have.
yeah, and that's we're kind of looking at the same situation as we were pushing those U's pretty hard on just some pretty mediocre hay during that drought period, trying to hope for some rain to come through and get some fresh pasture growth out there, and then what they were on, making them clean up probably to a further extent than what we normally would. And it'll be interesting to see kind of where we hit, but not expecting to be exceptionally high
Hmm.
this year because ultimately because of environment during that breeding season. So
Yeah.
we'll see. You have to take all of those things into consideration, um, and I guess while they're happening, also just know that that environment is playing an impact, playing a factor into that breeding success. And so if you need to have that extra 20+% lamb crop from 180 to 200, maybe it's worth bringing in some supplementation. Um, but it's hard to know kind of what the end result's going to be until that following spring, winter.
Yeah. Now those December lambs, holy crud, do they look good. They've got
Really good.
one more week and then those lambs are going to be weaned. And those lambs are never going to see pasture. They're on, pretty decent creep feed. And
Fast track to somebody's table.
yeah, we're going to weigh those up here next week, and we'll give them a couple of days, calm down, and then but we're going to weigh those up, and those will be Mount Hope bound pretty soon. That's the plan, anyhow. Try to cash in
Nice.
on those higher prices and see what will happen. So that's the plan. That's where we're at. We'll see how we can see how things go, I guess. But yeah,
Yeah.
this whole lambing thing has been so drug out. I
Yeah.
expected it to come hard and heavy and would be all done and it'd be over with. But No, we're into almost 2 weeks, and it's looking at some of these others. They're bagging, but they're just bagging slow. They're going to be
Yeah.
in that second round for sure. So, well, we thank you for listening to another episode of the Grazing Sheep Podcast. There's a Facebook page, YouTube channel there. If you want to talk to me or, any questions or comments, you can reach out to me, I guess what I'm trying to say, at bigtomperkins@gmail.com. So it's been good catching up with you, Cam. I got to head down and see if there's any more lambs. Although
Yeah,
it's
well,
all,
hopefully there are.
yeah, I don't get
And
that
enjoy
excited anymore.
lambing. Yeah. 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 Just more slimy ones to pick up and put in a jug.
Yeah, well, a lot of times I'll walk down, there's just nothing. And
Yeah.
it's a disappointment. I just grab a broom, sweep the
Yeah.
hay in, and so it wasn't a wasted trip. But
Yeah.
so, all right, Cam, we'll catch up with you next week, and happy lambing.
Sounds good, Tom. Have a good one.
All right, bye.